The Library of Alexandria. You know, when you hear that name, you immediately think of this incredible, tragic loss, right? This massive bonfire of ancient wisdom. It's become the ultimate symbol for knowledge just gone. But what if the story we all know isn't the whole truth? Okay, let's get into it. The story we usually hear is super dramatic and pretty simple. One huge, catastrophic fire, and boom, the greatest collection of knowledge in the ancient world vanished forever. We've all seen pictures like this one, imagining this amazing center of learning just turning to ash in an instant. And yet, the most famous account points the finger squarely at one guy, Julius Caesar. The story goes that in 48 BC, while he was fighting a civil war in Egypt, a fire he set on his ships got out of control, spread from the docks, and just wiped out the library. It's a story that's been told for more than 2,000 years. But here's the thing, is that actually what happened? Was it really just one terrible accident? Or is the truth a lot more complicated? A story that isn't just about what was lost, but about where all that knowledge actually went. To figure this out, we have to go back, way back to the beginning. Because the library wasn't just some building with a bunch of scrolls. No, it was born from this absolutely wild ambition to gather all of the world's knowledge in one single place. So after Alexander the Great died, his general, Ptolemy I, took over Egypt. He and his son Ptolemy II kicked off this new dynasty, and they had a radical idea. They wanted to build a library in their capital, Alexandria, that would have a copy of every single book in the known world. And the sheer scale of this project was just mind-boggling. At its absolute peak, scholars figure the library might have held up to 400,000 papyrus scrolls. I mean, for the ancient world, that number was almost unimaginable. Which, of course, leads to the big question. How on earth did they do it? How did one library manage to collect that much of the world's information? Well, their methods were, let's just say, aggressive. And kind of brilliant. The Ptolemies had this huge state-funded budget. They sent agents to scour book markets everywhere. But then there was the really audacious part. Any ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor had its scrolls confiscated. They were taken to the library, copied by scribes, and then, get this, the copy was returned to the owner. The library kept the original. But here's the thing. The library was so much more than just a storage facility for scrolls. It was the heart of this bigger research institute called the Malseon. It was basically the ancient world's #1 think tank. And the reason it was so successful? The Ptolemies basically created an intellectual paradise. Scholars were given a huge salary, free food and housing, and they didn't have to pay taxes. Their only job was to think, research, and create. It was pretty much the forerunner to the modern university campus. And the work they did there, it was revolutionary. A scholar named Callimachus created the Panacus, a massive 120-volume catalog of everything in the library, basically the world's first library catalog. And the very first head librarian, Zenodotus, was the first person we know of to organize things alphabetically. That's right, we can thank him for alphabetical order. The breakthroughs weren't just about organizing books, either. Eratosthenes, another head librarian, used the library's resources to calculate the circumference of the Earth, and he was astonishingly accurate. Then you have Hero of Alexandria, who invented the first ever recorded steam engine. Wild, right? There's even a legend that the great inventor Archimedes came up with his famous water pump, the Archimedes screw, while he was studying in Alexandria. This place was just a magnet for the absolute brightest minds of the era. So if this was the Golden Age, this hub of unbelievable genius and discovery, how did it all end? Well, the real story isn't about a single spark from a fire. It's about politics and a slow, painful decline. So this is the most crucial part of the whole story. You have to forget the romantic idea of a single giant fire. The real reason the library declined was politics. It was instability and bitter infighting. The beginning of the end really started in 145 BC. The ruler at the time, Ptolemy VIII, who had the lovely nickname Potbelly, he had a huge falling out with the city's intellectuals. So he just purged Alexandria of all foreign scholars. He kicked them all out, including the head librarian Aristarchus. This act set off a massive brain drain, scattering these incredible minds all across the Mediterranean. You see, the library didn't have one end, it had many. The myth of that one big fire hides a much longer, much messier truth, a story of a gradual death by 1,000 cuts. Let's just walk through the timeline. First, you have the purge in 1405 BC, which starts the decline. Then, Caesar's fire happens in 48 BC. But most historians now think that fire probably just burned a warehouse full of scrolls down by the docks, not the main library itself. That building either survived or was rebuilt. The real destruction came centuries later, during conflicts in the 270s AD. And the final nail in the coffin was probably in 391 AD, when a daughter library was demolished. This is what's left of that daughter library today. It's a far cry from that grand romantic image of a single building engulfed in flames, isn't it? The reality is so much more fragmented. It's a story of slow decay and lots of different destructive events. So let's just put it all side by side. The myth is simple: one fire, a total loss, a single tragedy. But the reality? It's a slow decline over 500 years, a whole series of different destructive events, and, this is the key, a dispersal of knowledge, not just its total destruction. And that brings us to the library's real legacy. Because if we look at the story this way, it's not just about what was lost. It's also about how knowledge was saved, transformed, and spread. This is probably the most important takeaway of all. That purge in 145 BC created a diaspora of scholars. When they were forced to flee Alexandria, they didn't just run away with nothing. They took the library's methods, its texts, and its way of thinking with them. And they went on to plant new seeds of learning all over the world. The head librarian student founded a school on Rhodes and wrote the first definitive book on Greek grammar. Others went to rival cities or brought that Alexandrian way of scholarship to Rome. So, in a strange way, the slow death of the library allowed its ideas to pollinate the rest of the ancient world. The story of the Library of Alexandria is such a powerful reminder that history is rarely as simple as the myths we tell ourselves. It wasn't one big cinematic tragedy. It was a complex, messy process of political decay and intellectual transformation. And that leaves us with a pretty big question. What other historical myths do we all just accept as fact?